All right, don't adjust your speakers. Don't adjust your computer monitors. It is the Mike Farrell Sports Show. We are back. Much needed week or two away to recharge the batteries, get caught up with all thing college football. And frankly, Mike was just bored, but he's not bored anymore
I'm
because there's
bored.
a
I was just
there's a bleep ton going on. Mike, there's a bleep ton going on right now.
I was angry. I was just I was pouty. December 5th is what did it for me. That was when everybody entered the portal. So I don't think we did one that week.
I think we did. You didn't want to talk about it, though. You, as we did our pre-show, you're like, I don't want to talk about the portal, and so
Yes.
I think we talked about like the size of the football and kicking tees efficiency and all this other good stuff.
Yeah. So, oh wait, I haven't even put in my freaking pods. No wonder you can't hear me. Hold on.
I hear you just fine. You sound
Nah.
good. So we're gonna do this live. That's what's awesome. And so as we prepare for the show, Mike's trying to get his audio figured out here. He's moving his lips. I don't hear him though. Now he's cursing. It looks like if you're watching on YouTube, that definitely sounded like an F word somewhere in there.
Hear me now?
Now he disappeared. He's back though. Mike Farrell is back. I don't see him, but I hear him.
So, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
I tried to use these dumb things.
Okay. Hopefully they're not a sponsor. Okay, Mike's back again, but his video is gone now. So we're off to this is why we take time off. Yeah, we're back. Okay, there's Mike. He's got headphones in.
I forgot to put these in, and it takes a while for them to Bluetooth, and so whatever. Nobody gives a crap about any of that. December 5th week it sucked. December 12th week sucked because that was the second week of the portal. And then last week was signing week, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about anything because I was busy. So now I'm back. We're going to talk recruiting. We're going to talk portal. We're going to talk all that fun stuff. I'm not as angry. I know it's hard to believe and hard to tell, but I'm not as angry as I was then. But, it's just the NCAA is so dumb, and they just lump all this stuff together. But now we're through it. All is good.
Well, let's start, I guess, with your old bread and butter, Mike, signing day. Obviously, high school recruits had a kind of a 3-day window here in the early signing period up until December 23rd to put their name on a national letter of intent. A bunch of kids have done that, Mike. Obviously, a lot of people lost their mind over a few different stories. We'll get to all that in a second, but just give me your high level. Give me your top 3 winners from signing day. 3 programs that you think, I don't care where they finished, 3 programs that you think essentially had a winning signing day.
I'm going to say Alabama. They finished number 1. Okay. There was concern about Saban in the NIL era, and he said, I don't like NIL. I think this is dumb for the sport, but I'm going to, win it anyways. And he did. So Alabama finished strong. 2 in-state, 5-star kids to finish. I have them with 7 of my own personal ranking 5-star kids, and that's far and away above everybody else. So I'll give them, the first kudos. Oregon's next. Oregon did a great job. Dan Lanning closed very strong. They didn't get Peyton Bowen. I know he had committed to them, and then he decided not to sign. And this was the kid who was committed to Notre Dame. Then he commits to Oregon. Then he commits to Oklahoma. Generally, those kids don't pan out. I don't think Oregon's going to lose too much sleep over it. He's a Texas kid. He could have transferred. So Oklahoma's probably the best spot for him. But other than that, losing Dante Moore early in that week, and coming back with Alec Novosad from Baylor, to me, it's kind of equal. I think Dante Moore is a more talented quarterback. I have him ranked higher, but Novosad I have in my top 7 or 8 as well. So that was great. And then the way they closed, it was just Dan Lanning deserved.
Are you surprised by that? Are you surprised that they closed as strong as they did?
Yeah, I was, because, that Monday, everybody was saying Dan Lanning can't recruit. He sucks. This is horrible. This is embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. Because Dante Moore flips. But again, there's a lot behind the scenes with Dante Moore's situation. Like Dante Moore, originally, when he made his decision to go to Oregon, he did it himself. There wasn't an NIL grab. NIL was promised, and certainly opportunities were given to him. But it was, I like Kenny Dillingham, the offensive coordinator. I like Oregon. I like the direction of the program, blah, blah, blah. Kenny Dillingham goes to Arizona State. All of a sudden, somebody in the Moore family starts getting their hand out a little bit and says, we want more and more and more because your guy left. No pun intended. So UCLA comes in, big NIL offer, big opportunity. Chip Kelly, kid flips. Everybody says Lanning sucks. And then they close as strong as anybody in the Pac-12 that I can think of. Now, I know Cristobal has had some good classes at Oregon, but since Pete Carroll, honestly, this is the best close I've seen. Mateo Uongalele was supposed to go to USC. If not USC, is Ohio State. On and on it goes. You know, that was just a great day. Jaden Lamar flipped from Notre Dame. Nova said, I mentioned, Ohio State tried to flip this kid. Other schools, Notre Dame tried to flip. Nova said for Baylor. Wouldn't budge. So for them to get him to flip at the end was just extremely impressive. So I was surprised. And I think I got a little bit more respect in my head for what Dan Lanning could do there. And the third one, you wanted a third. I'm going to give you a third. You know, so it's one of those things where, you know, I could pick Georgia because they finished number 2. You know, I could pick Texas because they were very quietly top 5 recruiting class in my book. You know, I'm going to pick, and it's not the way they finished. It's just the way they're headed, I believe, in my opinion. And that's Tennessee. I have Tennessee as a top 10 recruiting class. You know, they've got Nico Imboleva, who's their, you know, star quarterback of the future. The last kid they got committed was Arian Carter, a linebacker from Tennessee in December 14th, the week before. But it didn't matter. This was a great class from start to finish. They closed late on some kids like David Hobbs from North Carolina. This is the type of class that can keep them moving forward, and that's extremely important because Tennessee could easily take a step back, and then the fan base gets upset, the boosters get upset, everybody says Heupel is Butch Jones or, you know, whatever. And I think this is a really important class for them. So I'm going to give them the third prop.
Yeah, that's a good call, Mike, because obviously right now, you know, things in volunteer country at an all-time high, right? We're at a peak in volunteer country. And I think for him to continue to stack wins on top of the season he put together is huge for Heupel to continue to move that thing forward. So that's a good call. So we got 3 wins.
Yeah.
But we got to do losers, Mike. Come
Let's
on. It's not the Mike Farrell Sports Show without losers. 3 programs, 3 schools, 3 kids, 3 coaches, whoever you want, Mike. Give me 3 losers out of signing day.
Ohio State.
Okay.
There it is. Loser.
That's an L on the screen, yeah.
Finished with the top 5 recruiting class. So, you know, why would I credit Tennessee, who didn't really do much down the stretch in top 10 class, and they say Ohio State's a loser? You know, Texas finished top 5 recruiting class, didn't really lose anybody down the stretch, but didn't add a whole lot. You know, stole a kid from Louisville. It's the way Ohio State finished. It just wasn't good. You know, they had 3 big defensive end targets. Keon Keeley, Damon Wilson, Mateo Ongalele. They were supposed to get one of those guys. So Larry Johnson always gets 1. Maybe they were going to get 2. Maybe they're going to get 3. Doubtful 3. But, you know, Keeley goes to Alabama. Wilson goes to Georgia. Ongalele goes to Oregon. And that's just not good. Now, they held on to their guys. But the week leading up, they lost Dylan Raiola. The 5-star quarterback in the 2024 class. The momentum just wasn't there for Ohio State. They just didn't close well. And I expected them to, listen, this is a team that's in the playoff. This is still the cream of the crop in the Big Ten, despite the fact that Michigan beat them 2 times in a row. When it comes to recruiting, Ohio State head and shoulders above everybody else, and they kind of failed. Notre Dame struggled a little bit too. You know, they lost the kid I mentioned to Oregon. They lost Peyton Bowen, who ended up at Oklahoma. Now, again, a good recruiting class, especially for a team in the North. You know, they're a top 10 recruiting class. But, you know, Kenny Minchie is the guy they stole at quarterback in the end. I wasn't really thrilled with him. He's okay. He stole him from Pitt, but it's kind of like a reach move. You know, they thought they were going to get Dante Moore early. They didn't. So I wasn't thrilled with the way Notre Dame finished. Again, good class, but kind of a dud landing. The last one. I'm glancing through here. I want to see who I want to smite. Who do I want to smite? I'm gonna smite Baylor. This was a team preseason. A lot of people picked them to win the Big 12. You know, be a playoff contender. Their season was up and down, very erratic, and they lose Novosad at the last second. They're the prize jewel of this class. They finish outside the top 25 in my book. That's not good. You know, Iran is not in trouble in any way, shape, or form, but you remember early in the season, he was being talked about as Nebraska, Wisconsin, you know, all these open jobs. he didn't have a good season on the field, and they didn't have a great recruiting year. So I'm going to slam them.
Mike, forgive me for noticing, somebody who listens to you talk and reads a bunch of stuff you write. I feel like you've been out there with some concerns at Ohio State. Nothing major to your point. They're in the playoff here, but it feels like you're kind of projecting a death by a thousand paper cuts kind of strategy here, where little things here and there have kind of gone wrong a little bit that have rubbed you the wrong way to Ohio State. You add them now into your potential quote unquote losers on the recruiting trail. I get the sense that you're seeing some cracks come through in that Ryan Day led Ohio State program.
Well, what it is that the bar is set so high at Ohio State, and this is what happened at Florida too when Urban Meyer was there, won a national championship, and then left, 2 national championships, then left. The bar so high that whoever's left over is going to be considered a guy who's gifted and inherited a Lamborghini. And if a Lamborghini is looking great and going 220 miles an hour and, all waxed and cleaned and gorgeous, then that's great. But when you get a nick on it, a scratch on it, or, you got some engine problems, everyone's going to blame you. And so here's the issue with Ryan Day. He's lost to Michigan twice in a row. Fan base not happy about that at all.
Yep.
Last year was shocking. This year, I guess it was supposed to be revenge at home, and they got drilled again. Not happy. They backed their way into the playoff. They're probably going to lose to Georgia. That's not going to go over well. They lose Dylan Raiola, the 5-star quarterback, and then they kind of thud their way through signing day by not getting any big names. It's not going well from the perspective of Ohio State fans and boosters. And, let's say they beat Georgia and let's say Michigan beats TCU and they get a rematch for the national championship and Michigan wins the national title.
Must win. That's a must win for Ohio State, right?
Honestly, it's for Ryan Day. It's a win or get fired type of game. I mean, which is ridiculous. The guy's lost, I believe, 4 games maybe over, he's been to the playoff twice. He's been to the national championship once. But if that scenario plays out, and I think the committee did him a big favor, not putting him third. Not that it's a favor to play Georgia at number 1, but they put him at third. He plays Michigan, gets drilled. I just think he's a good coach. I don't think he inherited this. I think he did a great job keeping it going. I think recruiting is still great there. I mean, they're top 5 recruiting class in the country. The problem is the expectations are so high that I don't think he can meet them short of winning a national title every 3 or 4 years and beating Michigan every year, period. Urban Meyer didn't lose to Michigan, just didn't. And Day's lost twice. He's 1-2 against Michigan. It's not going to fly. So that's where I see the problem.
All right, obviously Ryan Day, an established coach. Mike, I'm curious on your perspective on this. Obviously, a lot of new coaches took over, right at that turn of the calendar into December, and they have a short amount of time to get out there in the recruiting trail. Matt Rule, Deion Sanders, Hugh Freeze, a couple names coming to mind. Of the new coaches, or the new guys who are taking over, who do you think did the best job? I know there's obviously a lot of things stacked against them, but they have some things stacked in their favor as well. So between some of the newer coaches that are out there, and I named a few, but I'm sure you have more on your list, who do you think did a nice job to rally and close on a good class in their first official class for their new school?
I think Freeze did. He was very, very active. You look at almost half of this class was done since he was hired. Some of them are like Hank Brown, the quarterback from Nashville, he took from Liberty. It's not a big deal. Maybe he's going to be great. Maybe he's not going to be great. I don't know. He's a 3-star kid, but when you steal Keldrick Falk, who's an Alabama kid who went to Florida State, was very solid. A lot of people try to flip him, and you're able to flip him in the end. If you're able to go back into Georgia, which I think is something that Gus got away from, and certainly Harsin never got a chance to really, do successfully. You get Kay and Lee. Georgia's vitally important to this. Mississippi is as well. The home state of Alabama, Sylvester Smith, Keldrick Falk, those guys getting them. He did a great job. It's a top 20 recruiting class. There was nothing there when he got there. I mean, this was a class with 11 commitments, a lot of decommitments. Harsin was a dead man walking all season long. Freeze was hired late. So I think he did a great job. Rule did a good job. Fickle did a good job. Deion didn't make the splash that everybody expected, but I think that will come in 2024. When it comes to star ratings and transfer portal, I don't know if Deion's a good coach. I don't know if his staff is good. I really am not overly impressed with some of the hires he's made. But that will come. But Hugh Freeze was tested immediately by a very impatient fan base and booster group, and he nailed it.
Well, let's talk Dion. Obviously, he's been the talk of college football. Came in, basically told all of his kids, hey, you might want to get in the portal. I know we're going to talk portal in a second. He's on social media. He's not hard to find from what I understand. Mike, what do you make of kind of the job he's done so far? And is Colorado a place? Can he recruit to Colorado? Is that a destination that you think kids are going to want to go to simply because Dion is there?
At first, yeah, I think so. I mean, I like Dion. I was always a fan of Dion back in college, and with the Atlanta Falcons, and then he played for my Cowboys, and obviously helped them win Super Bowls. And even when he was at San Fran, when I hated San Fran, I still respected him and liked him. He's fun. He's Dion. He's neon. But there's only so much you can do. I mean, there's going to be interest, certainly. We saw the power of, seeing kids follow him to Jackson State, spurning Power 5 offers. 2 kids, Travis Hunter being the most notable, but, kids saying, I'm going to play for Dion. That's going to happen in Colorado. I mean, that's more of an attractive landing spot than Jackson State. But a lot of fish out of water situations here, I think. Kids will get to Boulder, and if things aren't good, if they're not winning, which this is a 1-11 football team with a really bad roster, I think you're going to start to see that ability to lure kids dissipate a little bit. He'll leave them in a better spot. He's going to be there for probably 2 years because his son's going to be the quarterback there for a couple of years. He'll leave them in a better spot. But I don't think this is like, I know people say stuff just to say stuff. Like the most arrogant human being on the planet Earth is Skip Bayless. He's just a complete idiot, right? And so he says stuff just to say stuff that will go viral. Everybody retweets it and watches his dumb show with, Shannon Sharp. I can't even understand what he's saying. It's just, but I still watch the show because I want to see what idiot says and try to understand, 3 words in a row from Shannon Sharp. He said he's going to win a national championship within 5 years. He's not going to be there for 5 years, first of all. And some people are saying this is the new Alabama. People are idiots. This is not the new Alabama. I don't think he's going to have a winning season there in his 2 years. I think he'll bolt for a better and bigger job. Could be Florida State, although they're doing great in the portal, as we'll get to in a second. And Mike Norvell's got that thing churning. But it's going to be a bigger job he's going to leave for. But he's not going to be successful there. And I think he understands that. I think he knows he's going to win 7 games at most. But it's the hire they had to make. They just had to. I thought whoever's going to hire Dion was going to say, listen, you better put together a staff that's super experienced in Power 5 that can carry you because we don't know if you can coach. He didn't even have to do that. He brought a bunch of guys that nobody knows about, that he's coached with before, that never have, coached on a high level stage like the Pac-12. They've just given him everything. Academic, we don't worry about those in the portal anymore. We don't worry about academics in the recruiting class. You can do what you want. You can take whoever you want. We'll give you NIL. NIL's going well there. But it's still Colorado. There's only a certain level you can reach, I think, before that gets stale.
Sunday is also always fun, Mike. There's these little stories that pop up, some of the oddities, the quirks, all the gossip, the drama. We had a couple on this early Sunday day period. Cormani McClain, Mike's probably the one that comes to mind the most. To orient folks, he was a kid who was considered a lock to Florida, a local kid from Polk County in Lakeland, was considered a lock to Florida. A lot of folks had that projected. Then out of nowhere, he commits to the University of Miami. He's all over social media, throwing up the U, taking pictures of Mario Cristobal. Things are looking great there. Obviously, everyone says NIL is involved. We know what Miami's boosters, John Ruiz specifically, will do from an NIL standpoint. Signing day comes around. There's a picture of his high school, Lakeland High School. There's a table. There's a cake from the local grocery store on there that has the Miami colors on it. It says, congrats, Cormani McClain, on signing, whatever it said. And, Mike, no one ever ate that cake because Cormani did not sign on early signing period here, at least that we know of. His mom, who seems to be kind of running interference here, basically tweeted out on that first day, sorry, no signing today. There was rumors he would sign later in the week. He has not done so. Now there's all kinds of rumors. Is Florida getting back involved, and the money not coming from Miami? Is Dion going to get involved? Obviously, he still has time to sign at the actual signing window in February. But what the hell is going on with Cormani McClain? What do you read into him not actually signing with Miami during this early window?
Yeah, there were three things that I heard initially. The first was an academic snafu, which is not the case. I mean, this was when he was committed, as everybody knows who follows recruiting, you kind of know whether a kid's going to qualify or not. You kind of know if he's got too many absences, is going to be red flagged by admissions or whatever. I mean, whatever rumors I heard academically or attendance wise or credits, I can't believe it's any of those, because when he did commit to Miami, all that stuff's checked out. The second thing I heard was Dion. Dion gets involved here. Kid thinks about it. But this is a kid from Lakeland. Is he going to really give up everything that he wanted, which was play close to home? Florida was the first choice, Miami the next choice, and Alabama was the third choice, and go to Boulder and just follow Dion blindly. Then I heard NIL deal with Dion, but I don't think that's going to be better than what Miami had for him. So then it's like the check didn't cash. This is it. This is how people picture things. Cormani's mom went to the bank, handed over this big check, and it just bounced, right? Or she went there with one of those prices.
I met it's one of those Happy Gilmore style checks, right? I imagine it's one of those Happy Gilmore ones, the giant ones.
Right, the huge ones. Yeah. So, it just bounced. Now, that's not the case either, but I do believe this is sort of an NIL play. This is a program that convinced him not to go to Florida, and there were other reasons. Coach Van Dyke at Florida State has a tremendous relationship with the kid. Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter. Lakeland kids who've gone to Florida recently have not said great things about their experience at Florida. A lot of factors in there. But he was, again, convinced to go to Miami instead of Florida. And part of that was NIL. So something behind the scenes is working there. I've heard Alabama is in, the mix here. I haven't really heard Florida's back in the mix. What I did hear is that when this kid was supposed to be rumored to be signing a $2.5 million NIL deal or whatever garbage was put out there, that everybody in that Florida defensive back room heard about it, came up to their coach and said, "Where's mine?" There's no way a freshman's coming in and getting that. So I don't know if they want a headache of that. NIL is part of Florida's recruiting. Their collective has been up and down as far as its success, but I'm not sure they really want to jump back into this if it's a money situation. Alabama has the #1 recruiting class in the country. Nick Saban's a defensive back god, so maybe that's part of it. And they have good NIL opportunities for him as well. And maybe Dion. Maybe he wants to wait and take a visit up to Boulder, but this is a situation where he didn't sign in the early. Now he can sign in the late. He will sign in the late. And I just think it's one of those situations where something hit a snag when it comes to promises he was made, probably monetarily at Miami. But this is the thing. I mean, their benefactor's a billionaire. It's not like, I think this was a miscommunication. And I think one party heard one thing, the other party heard another thing when it came down to that, signing day, which is also when people don't understand this. When NIL, you don't sign your NIL agreement in October or in the summer when you commit. You sign your NIL agreement at signing day, like right around signing day, right after signing day, right during signing day, right before signing day. The signature on NIL goes along with the signature for enrolling in that school. And I think something was on that paperwork that wasn't expected. And the family just sort of said, we're going to come back. And the negotiations, if there's a misunderstanding and we meant this, it's a short period of time to get that done. I thought it would be done by Friday. He didn't sign Wednesday, but it didn't get cleared up. So that's my best guess. Now, any coach, they can't talk about this stuff. They can't talk about a recruit that's not signed. Any coach involved here is going to say this has nothing to do with NIL. Just like every coach tells you about every kid that comes here, it's for the hunger, it's for family, it's for the it's for, the spirit of amateurism and all that garbage. So you really won't get a true answer from anybody. But I think this comes down to money.
Do you think more kids will do that, Mike? More the top players will kind of use this early signing day as leverage to maybe get better, bigger deals and hold off till February? Do you think that'll be a trend we'll start seeing just based off this Cormani? Again, that may not have been his intention on this one, but it turns out it may work in that favor. Do you think you'll see more of that?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, if you're a high level recruit, I would never in a million years sign a letter of intent. Just for no, and this has been the case honestly for 20 years. There's no point in signing an agreement. If you're an early enrollee, yeah, oh my gosh, you got to sign in the early signing period, right? No, you're enrolled when you sit your butt in class, and that's when your scholarship is guaranteed on their end, and your commitment is guaranteed on your end. But still, back in the day when you sit your butt in a seat, I remember the infamous Gunnar Kiel situation. Gunnar Kiel was committed in Indiana, then he decommitted and committed to Notre Dame. But right around signing day, he was on a flight to LSU, and he was an early enrollee, and he hadn't signed with Notre Dame. And if they could just get his butt in a seat, his buttocks in a chair in a classroom, he was theirs, because that was when the portal didn't exist, and you had to sit out a year to transfer, but they couldn't get his butt in a seat. And, Gunnar Kiel ended up sucking anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But nowadays, you could still, you don't have to sign a letter. You could just sit your butt in a seat, and you could transfer the next day if you want to. There's no reason to sign a letter. They're ridiculous and then dumb. They guarantee you nothing. We're in the age of professional college football, so I wouldn't sign it. Now, let's say the letter matters. If you're not an early enrollee, why even sign the letter in December? Who cares? Just wait until February. Maybe a better offer comes along. Maybe you get this attention that Carmani McLean's going to get. You really don't have a lot to risk if you're an elite football player. 3 stars can't really do this.
Sure, sign as soon as your paper in front of you. Yeah.
5 stars can do whatever they want, and it still puzzles me to this day, and it has for 20 years, as to why anybody that highly recruited would ever put their signature on a letter of intent.
So crystal ball right now, Mike. Does Cormani end up in Miami, Alabama, Colorado, or D, parts unknown?
I think Miami. If they want him, it's very difficult to beat Mario Cristobal on a recruit. He's just, and I could say that about Nick Saban as well, but this is sort of a home state advantage. This is a little bit more difficult for Alabama, and it's certainly most difficult for Dion in Colorado. I think they're a third here, if there is a third. I think he's back in Miami if they want him. They wanted him badly enough to convince him not to go to Florida, to convince him to come to Miami. He's got great relationships there. If this misunderstanding can be, fixed, then that's where he's going to end up. Now, if this is one where it's a decimal point, oh, you promised me $25 million and it's $2.5 million, and I'm making up all these garbage numbers because I love to do that because everybody else does it. Then
Mike Farrell reporting exclusively $25 million
$25 million NIL deal offered for Carmani McLean. But, you've got a huge, honestly, insurmountable bridge to cross. I mean, it's just not going to happen. If there's that much of a misunderstanding, in NIL, then honestly, if I were Miami and a parent came to me and said, you promised me this, and it's clear you didn't, I'd be like, go away. I don't want this kid. I don't want this headache. I don't want this nightmare. And if it's the kid, you promised me this, and Miami's like, no, we didn't, and they're lying to you, I don't want Miami. So if they want each other, still, this will be worked out, and I think he lands at Miami. But I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if Carmani McLean still wants to go to Miami, if there's hurt feelings. And I certainly don't know if Miami still wants him. So if I had that knowledge, I could tell you better. But Mario Cristobal got this kid away from Florida. If he wants him, he's going to get him.
Well, the beauty, Mike, is if it doesn't work out, we'll be talking about him maybe as soon as this year in the transfer portal, which is also even if it does work out. Fair point. Which is active right now as well. If you're listening to this show, I assume you're a college football nerd like Mike and I. But in case you aren't, the transfer portal a little different than early signing day. You don't have to sign by a certain day. To Mike's point earlier, you literally just had to have your butt in the seat of a classroom of the school that you intend to go to by the time their semester starts to be eligible. So there's still some runway in front of this one, Mike. So it isn't as wrapped up maybe as the signing day stuff is. But obviously the portal is open. I think if you're not following, by the way, at Farrell Portal on Twitter, you're missing out. That dude is money. I mean, if you have notifications on, you're not getting any sleep. I don't think he gets any sleep. But if you have notifications on, you're not getting any sleep. I think I saw over 1,000 players in there, Mike, over 800 something FBS scholarship player, something like that in there. Some crazy stats. Do I have those right?
More than that. I mean,
more than that.
Since August 1st, he tracks D2 FCS Group of Five, Power Five. And I'm not sure if he tracks D3. I can't remember what level of degenerate he is, but over
Very high.
4,000, over
Gotcha.
4,000 football players since August 1st. It's insane. Now, from the ones we care about, the Group of Five, Power Five, it's well over 1,000. It's closer to 2,000 than it is 1,000, and it will be over 2,000 when the window closes. And then we got the 15-day window in the spring where it's going to get crazy as well. So it's nuts. Yeah, he does a great job. He's going on. It's funny because he goes on vacation every once in a while. He's going on vacation.
What?
Wednesday. Yeah. Well, he's going on vacation Wednesday through like the weekend.
This can't happen, Mike.
It's not going to stop him. I don't even worry about it. He tells me I'm going on vacation, and he goes, you know, you might have to pick up some of the slack. And I'm like, okay. He can't stop himself, you know.
See when you get back, yeah.
Unless there's some sort of Wi-Fi issue. I think he was in like Yellowstone or something like that once, and he couldn't get a bar. But he's going to continue to do what he does, and it's a great feed. And the portal itself is, to me, it's very intriguing because there's overrated, you know, portal kids that I wonder how they're getting chances. JT Daniels gets his 4th school. I wouldn't touch a 20-foot pole. Yeah. Mike Bloomgren, are you that desperate? And then there's others that I think will probably surpass that 4 number, you know, eventually. I mean, Travis Hunter, who knows? He's going to Colorado. He got 100,000 YouTubes. I tried that for us, you know, for this show.
Mike will tell you what's going to happen if you get to 12 YouTube subscribers.
I wanted 100,000, and I was gonna tell everybody that he was going to Colorado if I got the 100,000. I think I got 3, so it didn't really work. But it was like, it's good marketing. He got over 150,000 subscribers to his YouTube channel, and people, as you know, are too lazy to unsubscribe to something. So you know, all those people who were hoping he was going to go to Georgia, Florida State, Alabama, USC, or whatever, they're still subscribers of his. Now, eventually, you know, if they have notifications on, they will unsubscribe because that gets annoying. But it's a genius marketing move. I don't care. I think Travis Hunter is a great player. I don't think he's a top 10 NFL talent great player. I don't think he's a world-beating, you know, difference-making NFL player. I think he's a skinny, fast, talented corner who can play wide receiver, who's going to be probably the best athlete up at Colorado. But I really thought he would do more at Jackson State because the competition level there was so weak. So, you know, you're going to get those hyped up guys, and then you're going to get some guys that are in there because they got in trouble. You know, Denver Harris or Chris Marshall for A&M both got suspended. And then you're going to get some guys you really haven't heard of that are going to make a difference in the college football playoff next year, like Dominic Levet, who nobody really knows about from Missouri. But, you know, had almost 900 yards receiving last year and kind of lit up Georgia in that game they almost won. Those are the difference makers to me. So there's a whole discrepancy between what's a good transfer and what's not a good transfer.
Let's do winners and losers again, Mike. Why not? We'll stick with this team here. And again, winners, it could be a player, Mike. It could be a program. You know, who do you have if you had to kind of parse out 3 winners you think so far from the transfer portal?
Okay, so 3 is tough, but I'll give you 3. I mean, the first one to me is easy. It's Florida State. Jaheim Bell leads a host of very, very talented football players that they're getting through the portal. I believe they have 7 commitments. Mike Norvell, you know, did a great job last year, as we saw. Most of his offense, you know, Johnny Wilson, they had running back transfers. They had defensive ends, Jared Verse, guys like that. I mean, their entire the improvement of their roster from one year to the next was very important in the portal. So they're one. Michigan is another one. They've done a great job in the portal, especially when it comes to offensive and defensive linemen. That's the toughest thing to find. When a fat guy goes into the portal, I mean, it's like a supermodel at a dive bar, man. It's like you should see the level of interest these guys get. Because that's hard to find. You can find wide receivers and cornerbacks anywhere you want. You can even find sort of linebackers and as we see this year, quarterbacks. But the sexiest guys in the portal are the fat guys on offensive and defensive lines, and they've done a great job there. The third one's tough for me because you think it's going to come down to quarterback, which is still extremely important. I think Kentucky with Devin Leary, I think that was a big deal. They have a really underrated group of young players on offense. They were so bad on offense this year. I mean, obviously Will Levis regressed. He stunk. Their offense was predicated on run the football all the time. Their offensive line was average. But now Liam Cohen's coming back is the worst kept secret in football from the Rams. He was the offensive coordinator who actually woke Will Levis up. And he's going to be working now with an experienced guy in Devin Leary. I think Kentucky is going to be a very dangerous offense next year after being horrible this year. Oh, losers!
Some losers. I need
Ohio
losers
State
now,
hasn't got anybody yet. I don't mean to keep slamming on Ohio State.
Thousand paper cuts.
Fentrell Cypress is a cornerback from UVA, very, very talented kid. Ohio State was the first to target him. Came on strong, but he didn't commit there yet. He could very well. They're going to get their guys, but it's a little glaring that they haven't gotten anybody except for a kicker and a punter. So I would be upset if I was an Ohio State fan about
that. Special teams is important.
Clemson are not getting anybody. I mean, they got Paul Tyson, who's a quarterback, was at Alabama, went to Arizona State. Now he's, but it's similar to what's his face? Was it Hunter Johnson? It's not you got Cade Klubnik. It's not a difference-making move. And Dabo is still very reluctant when it comes to the portal. So if I'm a fan, I'm a little bit upset about that. And usually I go with a team that's losing a lot of kids, where there's a lot of sort of bleeding going on. I think I'm not going to say loser, but I'm going to say it's concerning. Arkansas has so many kids. Now, I think Sam Pittman's trying to purge this roster. I think he's okay with this. But they are losing some. And last year they had a really good portal year. They brought in Hazelwood. They brought in Drew Sanders. I mean, they brought in some guys that really impacted their roster, and this year I'm not seeing the same.
Let's talk quarterbacks. Obviously, that's the sexiest name. You and I are talking on the 27th this morning. We learned Sam Hartman is in the portal. Obviously, sounds like that's probably a terribly kept secret, and there's already kind of a destination spot for him. Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina is still out there as well. A couple of quarterback dominoes that need to fall. Mike, any projections, any thoughts on where some of these kids may end up?
So we're starting to see the dominoes fall here as Hudson Card committed to Purdue. Leary, we were wondering where he's going to go. There was initial talk of Illinois, where his brother is, or go to Missouri. Spencer Sanders. There was talk of Florida early, but they ended up with Graham Mertz, and so we're starting to see these things come together a little bit.
Keaton Slovis to BYU was interesting.
Keaton Slovis, because Drew Pine was supposed to go to BYU, but then he visited Arizona State while he was out there and fell in love with Kenny Dillingham and blah, blah, blah. So the shuffling is almost done at quarterback, but there will always be additional entries. It's that situation where, just when you think everything's set, someone else will jump in, and Hartman's one of those guys that jumped in. He's going to go to Notre Dame, it appears. A good fit for them. Notre Dame is being very, very cautious and careful about who they take because, first of all, from an academic standpoint, they could take a kid from Wake Forest. That's a good school. The credits will transfer over, blah, blah, blah. They can't take any dummies. They can't just willy-nilly take anybody in the portal. Stanford, oddly enough, has been very aggressive in the portal. So something's changed there, that David Shaw wasn't getting the ability to get portal guys because they got 3 portal commitments already, which is really surprising for them. But again, from an academic standpoint, Notre Dame can't do that much. I don't know where Grayson McCall is going to go. I was 100% sure he was going to Auburn. That was, I thought, a done deal. And then there comes to be a credit transfer snafu, which people don't understand. They're like, oh, my God, you're telling me Grayson McCall can't get into Auburn? Auburn is not considered one of those schools that has high academic standards that's going to keep kids away. But they don't understand the portal. It's also from a Grayson McCall standpoint. You do not want to go in the portal and go to a different school and lose 20 freaking credits toward your degree.
Sure.
Jeff Sims chose Nebraska. He had other schools that were interested. Louisville, Cincinnati, Satterfield was at both places. But he's close. He's very close to a degree from Georgia Tech. So he has to find a school that's willing to allow him to finish that, and is willing to coordinate admissions with where he's at. And that's hard. So Grayson McCall, I'm not sure where he's going to go. he's probably the biggest name out there that hasn't made a decision yet. But I don't really have any intel on that one. I thought I thought again it was going to be Auburn. I don't know. I mean, okay. NC State, I don't know. They got young quarterbacks. Leary's gone. Maybe he's from that area. UNC, why would you ever go there with Drake May there? I really don't know where he's going to go. So that one I'm very intrigued about.
Overall, I know you've been somebody who's been critical of these past couple of weeks, right? With signing day, with bowl prep, with the transfer portal. If Mike Farrell ran the college football world, commissioner of college football, Commissioner Farrell reporting for duty, what changes would you make to the way the portal structure is right now?
First of all, if I was running college football for the last 25 years, it would be so much better. And we would have been well out ahead of NIL.
This podcast would probably be a lot more popular.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
You
and I wouldn't be talking. I'm sure you'd have somebody else to talk to other than me, right? But
I'm
Commissioner Farrell would absolutely rate on the podcast space.
Probably. I mean, there'd be a lot of hatred, of course, because everything I would do would be wrong. But so there's been so many mistakes by the NCAA over the years, and they continue to make them. They prop up an early signing period, which everybody likes. I didn't think it should be in December. I thought it was too close to February. I thought it was also too close to the coaching carousel and all the crazy season stuff and blah, blah, blah. I wanted it in August and have you sign in August. And if your head coach leaves, just like with the portal, you can get out of your letter of intent. With the portal, if your head coach leaves, you can jump in the portal before the window. But the August signing period, December portal, if you want to do a window. Now, I would go back to 365 days a year at the portal. I think that was actually honestly great. It was very, very manageable. And I don't think coaches thought it was manageable until they saw what a window looks like. And now they're like, wow, I miss the old days of some kid jumping in, May 22nd, or October 3rd, where we could actually manage that situation where he's one of 3 kids jumping in maybe that day or that 2 days. And we could truly evaluate what we want to do with him. And it's a surprise that he jumped in. Not always. I mean, obviously there's tampering that went on prior to that, but now you got kids announcing in November that they're jumping in the portal in December. You're essentially begging for tampering. If you don't tamper, then you aren't a good coach. So this window needs to go away. The early signing period in August, I think you've got a real makings of a solid calendar where you've got portal activity will be its highest in December, and then it'll be high through January, and then it'll be its highest in May through June, and make it manageable for everybody. Recruiting will peak a little bit in August. I think instead of 85% of the kids signing early, I think maybe it'd be closer to 70%, which gives you an opportunity to sort of revamp your roster and your needs. And again, a bunch of those kids that committed in August, you committed to Wisconsin or Nebraska, hey, you're out of your letter, you can do what you want. I just think that's a better calendar for everybody involved to deal with. They're going to change something. I've talked to way too many coaches who think this is dumb. Now, we're on the outside of it. We're past Christmas, but when they were in it, when it was December 5th, and the FCS one opened obviously a week before that, it was insane. And nobody liked it, and nobody got any sleep. There were a lot of marital fights and battles and, issues with, abandoned children for like 3 months at a time. It's just not conducive to any sort of happiness. And you throw NIL in with that. I would have gotten ahead of NIL. I mean, this was discussed 7 years ago. So what Mark Emmert did is he just pushed it on the government and hoped they figured it out and they didn't figure it out. And now we're screwed. Genie's out of the bottle now. So now what do? You crop up different rules. You let the SEC, have their own portal rules. I mean, NIL rules versus the Big Ten. I really don't know. The mess has been made. It's like, if you ever watch The Office, that Kevin spilled the chili, and now what do? You can't unspill it. I mean, you gotta. Actually, I think it's better. The guy who took a dump in The Office is a better example. They had to cut out the carpet and redo the entire office now, but you can't even do that. The NCAA took a dump, and there's no cleaning this up. So I can't fix that one for them.
One more topic I want to get to. I saw you had an article on MikeFarrellSports.com today, Fact or Fiction, which you do a couple times a week. And one of your Fact or Fictions was that North Carolina upgraded at offensive coordinator with the hiring of Chip Lindsey, which I don't even talk Chip Lindsey, but I want to talk assistant coaches for a second, because I think that's an area that we don't think about a lot, right? We think head coaches, you have all those moves. What are some of the assistant coach moves that have happened out there that you're really keeping an eye on? Either maybe a guy leaves you think was more important than we realize, or a new guy coming in that you think has some impact? Because I don't think we think about assistant coaches enough and the impact that they have. A lot of these kids commit to position coaches. They commit to assistant coaches. Those are the ones they're talking to every day. They're not talking to the head coach every day. Who are the assistants that have moved around a little bit you're keeping an eye on as you move forward here this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of them are guys that were brought in with new staffs. You see UNC losing Longo to Wisconsin because Luke Fickell wants to open up that offense, and they're not going to be Wisconsin anymore. And a kid like Mabry Matauer, who's likely, I think, going to commit to UNC, goes to Wisconsin for Longo, who developed Drake May, blah blah blah. They replace him with Chip Lindsey, who hasn't really been successful anywhere. I'm not sure how he really got this name as a offensive mind. But I look at the staffs that are being filled out. I'm more intrigued because we still haven't had all the movement we're going to have. See, this is what people don't understand. Black Monday's coming for the NFL, and that's going to impact
NFL
everything.
Black Monday. Yep.
It's going to impact.
Well, Nathaniel Hackett already got fired on Sunday, right. And then there's rumors about all the different. I don't know if it's a fake account or real account. I saw something with Lincoln Riley's name attached to it. So these rumors are going to start. I'm not saying Lincoln Riley's going to go there, by the way, but these rumors are going to start with college coaches.
We have not had a lot of movement right now. There's a couple guys, like I did the Fact or Fiction on Longo, and I'm trying to think of other guys right now that have kind of moved around. Obviously you lose a Ryan Walters at Illinois to Purdue, and that type of stuff is guys moving from one position to a higher position. Not a lot of lateral movement. There was some fear that Hartline would get hired at Cincinnati, and Ohio State would have to replace him at wide receiver. But to me, it's coming because the biggest coaching changes that I've seen over my career have all occurred in January. And that becomes the NFL and what's happening with the NFL. And I'm not saying Lincoln Riley's going to go take the Denver job, but what I'm saying is that whoever takes the Denver job is going to reach into college football and tap some of his guys on the shoulder. And more so now than ever before, it's going to be attractive to go to the NFL, because if you're a guy, and let's say, Sean Payton gets hired at Denver and he taps you on the shoulder to be the offensive coordinator for him, you got to think about, do I want to deal with NIL? Do I want to deal with the portal? Do I want to deal with all this garbage and recruiting? I don't have to deal with any of that crap in the NFL. I can get a 3-year guarantee.
Well, let me ask you this, Michael. If you're Ryan Day and the Indianapolis Colts call, you pick up that phone call?
My answer to that has changed since that Michigan game. So when he lost the Michigan game last year, I'm like, no way, not in a million years. I've known Ryan Day for a very long time. He doesn't back away from a challenge. I think they're going to come back this year stronger than ever. They're going to thump Michigan, go on to play for the national championship. And I thought they were going to be in the national title game with Alabama, and obviously it was wrong about Bama. Now, 2 losses at Michigan and everybody disgruntled and upset. That might be a phone call you want to take. Now, this is a guy who spent some time in the NFL, in San Fran with Chip Kelly. He's a guy that his offensive demeanor fits what the NFL does now. He would be a very attractive candidate. I think he takes that phone call. I don't think he takes the job, because I still think he has the best job in college football. And that's like any job. I don't think Nick Saban has a better job. Nick Saban's a better coach. But I think, if I were to pick one job that I wanted in college football, it would be Ohio State. Because of the challenges, the recruiting is harder. It's harder to recruit at Ohio State than it is at Georgia or at Alabama, because you got weather factors and things like that. But you're also head and shoulders above everybody else in the Big Ten if you do recruit those athletes from the Southeast. The imprint is there. It's been done. It can be done again. And I also think you get more accolades. Urban Meyer's national championship at Ohio State, to me, was, probably 5 times more impressive than anything he did at Florida. And I think you get those accolades if you are successful. Now, the problem with it is Ryan Day may have arguably the best job in college football right now, but he's also under the most pressure of anybody who's got a really good job too. So I think he would take the call. I don't think he would leave. But, the coordinator changes. I'm still waiting before I answer that question. I'm still trying to determine, who's going where. Because most of the guys that have left have been replaced. Will Stein up at Oregon. Who the hell is Will Stein? Anybody know Will Stein? He's an offensive coordinator. He's at UTSA. Nobody freaking knows. A lot of the jury is sort of out on some of these guys. I know who Will Stein is. I know very well what he's done. I know Lindsey, as you do, but the only reason you know Lindsey is because he's UCF. Before that, nobody knows. The guy at Troy, what did he do? Troy, Auburn, he didn't do great there. So I'm not going to dig. We
saw Barry Odom. You mentioned Arkansas earlier. Barry Odom went to UNLV. They've replaced him with Travis Williams as defensive coordinator. Sean Lewis, head coach at Toledo, I think. Now is the offensive coordinator at Colorado. I mean,
Kent State.
Or Kent State, rather. It's all the same. They're all in Ohio. It's all the same.
See, that one is, obviously comes to mind. I don't know if that's a good hire or not.
Sure. Who does, right?
Well, he left Kent State to go to become a coordinator. And Kent State had some guys. We see a couple of guys in the portal that are extremely successful, and his offense was fun and fast-paced and all that. I don't know if he's a good hire, though. I don't know. And usually I can answer things that I don't know, but I think I'm sort of pushing back on that particular, analysis right now, because the big moves are coming, and people are settled right now. They're like, oh my God, we got through the portal, we got through the recruiting. Let's just chill. We had Christmas, maybe we got a PS5 or, a pair of socks or whatever, Christmas gift you enjoy, and it's coming. It's coming because the NFL is probably going to have 6 new head coaches. And with that,
you've already got Denver, you already got Carolina. I imagine Arizona is going to open. I can't imagine Kingsbury is going to hang out there much longer at that point, right?
Can they keep Lovey at Houston? He sucks.
Lovey's probably on the way out at this point. That's 4 off the top of my head.
Well, did you mention Indianapolis?
Yeah, I did not. Sorry, Colts for 5. Yeah.
So there's 5. And there's at least one other.
There's going to be at least one random. But Sean McVay is always rumored to be retiring at an early age or whatever, right?
Well,
there's going to be one more out there at least.
I think there's going to be 6. I think we'll probably have 6 head coaching changes, in the NFL, and that's going to affect college football to unbelievable extent. If a head coach in college football takes one of those jobs, stand back. That's going to just blow up the world, because let's say Lincoln Riley decides to take one of those jobs. Wow.
Who's most likely, Mike, in your mind? Who's most likely to either get a call A, right? Which I think people always assume the sexy thing of every time there's an opening, we're calling all the college coaches, which I don't know how often that happens, right? But who's most likely, do you think, to get a call, get an offer, and actually go take that job? If you had to, put any amount of money that it's important to you on it right now, who do you put it on?
The funny thing about it is it never works. Name an example.
I was going to ask that next, but yes. Jimmy Johnson's the only one I can think of that actually went from college to pro and had any level of. I'm sure there's other guys who have been in playoffs, had deep playoff runs, but Jimmy Johnson, I think, is the gold medalist in that one.
Right, but most of them, Matt Rule's back in college football now. Cliff Kingsbury was a horrible hire. It was dumb. You've obviously got Nick Saban was successful
Chip
there.
Kelly didn't last. Steve Spurrier didn't last. Urban Meyer didn't last the whole season.
Yeah, it's just, it just never works. But yet those phone calls continue.
Barry Switzer didn't last in Dallas.
So my answer to that, he did win a Super Bowl. My answer to that is
Jimmy's players.
Is Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh. And listen, he's gone to the playoff twice in a row now.
That's good. That's another. Maybe he's the silver medalist in that conversation.
Well, the reason I say Jim Harbaugh is because he's done it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So he did it to an extent. Obviously from Stanford onto the NFL, but he's done it. He's been to the Super Bowl in the NFL. He knows. So he's got the track record. He's been successful at Michigan now. So I think the Colts are certainly going to make a phone call and see if he wants to come there. He played for them forever. So I think Jim Harbaugh is the most likely. I don't think he's going to do it. And if he does interview this time, he'll be probably a little bit less pissy and brash about it. And then, not like, GoPro his ride up to Minnesota on signing day because he's pissed at his salary. I mean, that was such an FU move. It was so awesome, but it's hurt his recruiting this year. So now I think he's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done
Cancel
that.
the GoPro, Jim. Cancel the drone flying over your Chevy Yukon as you drive up there. Yeah.
But I think Jim Harbaugh is the one who would be most likely. Lincoln Riley's been, mentioned. And listen, we totally forgot about the Cowboys. They're going to need a new head coach, and I'll tell you why, because Mike McCarthy sucks. And they're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs. And Jerry Jones
get Tampa in the first round. They may actually win the first round. Tampa looks pretty bad, but you're absolutely right. They're not going to achieve.
Tampa is horrible.
They're either going to get Tampa or Carolina. I tell you what, if he can't beat either of those two, Jerry should walk him out like in the third quarter. Just walk him off the field in the third quarter.
You got Dak, right, who can look like a world beater. All right, Dak,
and then he can throw a pass right to Josh Sweat right there.
So he comes out of the gate, throws a pass for a touchdown. Then he goes, 18 of 19? He looks like he's unbelievable, unstoppable. And then down the stretch, he gets a little bit wonky. He always throws like 3 passes that are just absolutely dumb and stupid. And he could do that against Carolina. He could do that against Tampa. So you just don't know. But if they don't make a deep playoff run, let's say they don't lose in the first round, but they lose in the second round, and it's like last year's playoff game, I think Mike McCarthy's gone too. So there, Lincoln Riley would be intriguing. He's not at Oklahoma anymore, but Jerry Jones is infatuated with him.
I think Jerry would. That's interesting. It's a timing thing. I think Jerry would absolutely back up the truck for Sean Payton. Since Sean Payton coached in Dallas, he's when that burst out. But if he goes first to Denver, then you're out of luck, right?
Well, I heard Sean Payton wants the San Diego job. That's the job that he wants. And they won last night and eked out a victory. But Staley's just awful. I mean, something's wrong with that dude because some of the coaching decisions he makes in games are so bad. So they're going to lose in the first round. And he could be, it could be a situation where it's like, okay, maybe Sean Payton's interested. We're going to get rid of this knucklehead. There are a lot of situations, but I think the guys that would be attractive are the offensive coaches. Certainly Harbaugh's not an offensive genius, but he's been there, done that. Lincoln Riley, Josh Heupel, those type of guys I think might get phone calls here and there because offense is contagious and everybody in the NFL wants that wide open offense. So those are the guys for me.
Josh Heupel's just wild to me as an NFL coach. Just wild. Because his offense, again, I'm not an offensive guru. His offense seems very simplistic, wide splits, right? Like stack them on that side, find ours are better. That just seems wild to me that's going to work in the NFL.
How dumb is the NFL though? I mean, honestly, monumentally stupid in their hiring practices. Monumentally stupid. Some of these hires that have been made just baffle the mind. And so Josh Heupel, with this exciting Tennessee offense, even though his route tree is like, it's like a bonsai tree.
Index card. Yeah.
There's nothing there. And it's a very simplistic offense that can be figured out as well if you really game plan against it. But I'm not saying he would leave. I'm not saying he would get a call, but I'm telling you, that's what the NFL looks at. They're not looking for defensive coaches anymore, really, even though some of the defensive coaches work out the best. They're looking for those offensive minds and those guys that can, put people in the seats and put up big points and make your team exciting. And he would certainly be one of those guys. So none of it's going to happen. I would love to see Heupel, Riley, and Harbaugh all leave and just watch chaos, absolute chaos in college football. It would be great, but it's not going to happen. We don't have to. But the assistant coaches, which is the original topic, there's going to be a ton of them going off the NFL because I've talked to guys that are waiting for that phone call. They're just waiting for that phone call to get the hell out of this mess that is college football because it's untenable.
We're going to revisit this assistant coach thing on a future episode of the Mike Farrell Sports Show.
Yeah, there aren't enough now for me to.
There aren't enough. Really fair point. Yeah, fair point. It was a great article on MikeFarrellSports.com, by the way, the Fact or Fiction. Mike, what else is going up on the site these days? Any good articles people should check out there?
Yeah, my buddy Mike Yusman's doing a sort of a series by conference, New Year's resolutions for each team in the Power Five. So what they really need to do, Tennessee's a great example. What's their resolution? What do they have to do? maintenance. And we talked about this at the top of the show, that recruiting class is extremely important, because if there's any slight dip at Tennessee, all hell's going to break loose, and everybody's going to be like, well, Butch won 9 games twice, and Jeremy Pruitt won 9 games once, or whatever. You can't have that. So, but there's other needs. Alabama is, it's not continuity. It's like, get your groove back and become the bully on the block. So that's a cool series that he's doing. We're going to be doing more of that. We're in the off season now. So what we've done, which I'm excited about the site, we peaked on our page views right from the portal into signing day. And I thought it would precipitously drop off, but we're becoming a bookmark. We still get more new users than I'd like to on a daily basis. And everybody says, well, you want new users. You've only been around since April 1st. But I want more returning users. I want people to get used to the churn of the page and how much content we put on there. We just put up the 10 best portal gets. A couple of days ago, we put up the top 10 portal teams, and we update that on a daily basis. All that stuff's there. But what's good is that our floor, which was, pretty low in the summer, our floor is much higher now. So we're heading into the offseason. We're going to do a ton of offseason stuff, ton of recruiting stuff. We're going to do a ton of 2024 stuff. As the draft gets closer, we're going to be doing more draft stuff. And then you're going to have so much off-season college football content, which I think is honestly easier to write than in season, because I can write the top 50 quarterbacks in college football, after this portal settles down, heading into next season. And I could change that 15 times between now and August. I can't change that week to week in the season. It's just not. You can't do it. So now you can do it, and you can have all that off-season fun. Then we got to get you people through the spring. We got to get you to the good weather. We got to get you to spring football. We got to get you to the second signing period, and that's kind of the goal of doing all that.
Again, make sure you bookmark that site and go back every day so you can make Mike happy. That's MikeFarrellSports.com. Again, subscribe to the podcast too on the Believe Podcast Network. Any reads we need to do here, Mike? I know we're at a practice on reads. Do we need to talk about anything on here? I mean, is ButcherBox still hanging around? I don't want to give them free revenue if they're not hanging around.
I mean, they're
that
still
check's
around.
not being cashed with Braun and Believe. I don't want to do that.
I was supposed to do my Bet Online read in the first 5 minutes. Oops. I never shut up. Well, first of all, I bitch for the first 5 minutes of the podcast. So how am I supposed to even like?
Well, you didn't have your headphones in for the first 5 minutes, to be fair.
Well, that's true. And then I bitched about everything. So it's like, I'm just going to do the quick one. Head to betonline.ag. The promo code is BLEAV. And you will receive 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. So I don't know the comings and goings of this. I don't know if you put in $100,000, if you get 50% of that. I can't imagine. I think there's a limit.
There's got to be a cap. I'm going to say there's a cap. I'm going to go on the limb right now and tell you there's a cap.
But my read doesn't have a cap, so I'm not going to false advertise, though.
Okay.
To a limit, you're going to get a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. It could be 50% of the middle finger. I don't know. But it's 50% of something. But betonline.ag, I'm like such a gambling addict now doing my betting pro stuff with Thor, who is just such an intriguing human being. The more I get to know him each week, the more I'm just fascinated with how people are built like that. He consumes everything college football he can ever get his hands on. Like, it's almost like he's an anteater in a football field of ants. He just will not stop snuffing and snorting college football. And I love gambling, and I've become better at it because of this. So now, I've got betonline.ag, and I can take some money from them with my genius. So Believe is the promo code. ButcherBox, I don't know if they're still with us. I got to double check that. It's been 2 weeks. I don't know. Listen, maybe the meat dried up, but I still love ButcherBox, because where else can you order a box of like 100 hot dogs and they get delivered to your door?
Very, very few places do you do that. And I hope the meat didn't dry. It wouldn't dry up at ButcherBox because it's quality meat there. Other fly-by-night meat delivery companies, yes, but good. ButcherBox is not a sponsor.
It's made me so fat.
Well, and your wallet can be fat again. That's betonline.ag. BLEAV is your promo code. It's degenerate season too, friends. I mean, right now you've got nothing but 3 or 4 college football games on in the entire week here. So you can sit back on vacation with your friends. You can be with your old Aunt Millie and make yourself a couple of shekels here. Go to BetOnline.ag, believe is
Well, I'll
your
give you
promo
free
code
money.
on that one.
BetOnline.ag, believe, BLEAV promo code.
Yep.
Take Florida State. I think they're laying 9 against Oklahoma. Just bet your house, bet your mortgage, just retire, bet $1 million, because that
$1 million on Florida State.
It's like the Oregon State Florida game when that line was 10 and then it moved to 8 because people think Florida's good. Florida sucks. They're not good.
They got that late second field goal, Mike. Hold on now.
Ooh, and Oregon State's good and nobody knows about them.
So they didn't get
shut out. More people know about Florida State, but Oklahoma sucks. They suck. They have zero chance of stopping or putting up points against Florida State. They're going to get curb stomped. Lay the 9, bet your mortgage. I think that game is in 2 days, December 29th.
Is it Thursday or Friday?
I think it's, what's today, Tuesday? I think it's Thursday. Yes. Bet your mortgage.
Cheese it, Bull.
And
cheese it.
If you want to kick me some, if you win, if you bet your mortgage and you win, I'll take it. I'll give you my Venmo. Personally, just DM me. But that is free money, and BetOnline.ag is where you can place that money.
Again, subscribe. That's YouTube. That's anywhere you're listening to podcast as part of the Believe Network. And make sure you bookmark MikeFarrellSports.com. Go back there often for more content. We're going to get out of here, let you enjoy your holiday week. Everybody have a safe and happy New Year. And maybe we'll talk to you in 2023. You never know whenever Mike will fire this thing up. But everybody,
I got to do it better. Can
you
do me a favor? Can you bother me?
Sure.
Just text
I had
me
the flu. I was out for like a week. I had the flu. I'm actually glad you didn't call me that week because you would have gotten, hey, Mike, you would have gotten like half 103 fever. It may have been a better show, frankly, if I'm being honest with you.
When you're feeling better, though, just say, Mike, just don't be a dick. Just send that text. Mike, don't be a dick. And if it comes from you, I'll know that we should podcast. Thank you.
All right. That's on me now. So I owe you all podcasts. So thanks for delegation on that one. Everybody take care of yourselves. Be safe out there. New Year's is coming around, amateur hour. So don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything Mike wouldn't do. And we'll talk to you soon.